As a firearm consultant for some time, and he did a great job of it. But he gave this presentation at an event similar to this, and I've always remembered it. It was powerful. He does know his firearms as well as anybody I've ever met. With that, Jeff, it's yours.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for inviting me. I want to give everybody a heads up and kind of apologize in advance before we get going. I've been dealing with a heck of a health battle over the last couple of years, and this is absolutely the first time that I've done anything like this in at least 2 years. I haven't even been to a gun show. I went to one show between surgeries there, and I got hurt. So things were pretty bad. My health was rough. I'm finally starting to heal up, but I'm still healing. So if I take a little longer to say something, or I pause between words a little bit too longer than I normally would, it's not because I don't care, or that the fire isn't there anymore. I'm just healing up. So thank you for being here. Assault weapons. This is what brought this whole issue back up again. Assault weapons. It's something politically that comes around every single session, not just here in the state of Maine. Unfortunately, not even just in the United States, but all over the place. Assault weapons. The most important thing to know is that there is no such thing as an assault weapon to start with. We're classifying firearms as good or bad, and we're already going down the wrong road by doing that. Firearms don't have any abilities to do anything on their own. They don't have a soul. They don't have any will. There are no firearms that are only going to do good things, and other firearms that are only going to do bad things. So it makes the rest of this kind of useless, but since we can't seem to sit down and have these meaningful conversations, we had heard before that it's important to talk to one another, and that absolutely is the most important thing. We've got a massive divide in this country, and it's not just here in the state of Maine, it is rural versus urban. And until we can actually have a meaningful conversation and talk and discuss things and ask questions like adult humans, instead of dividing on opposite sides of the room, pointing at each other and screaming bumper sticker slogans, and then walking away from each other as though we both just won, we're not gonna resolve any of this. So we have to start talking, and things like this are most important. The phrase assault weapon doesn't come from a military catalog or dictionary. The phrase assault weapon came from a man named Josh Sugarman, who was the executive director of the Violence Policy Center. And Josh that was an organization that they used to pinch for the same gun control laws that Sarah Brady used to. And he used to travel all around the country with Sarah Brady as a backup. His only problem with handgun control or Sarah Brady is he didn't think she was radical enough. So he wanted to employ tools and weapons that she wasn't using, and one of them was inventing this new term, assault weapon. He told me, and this isn't something I read on a blog somewhere, before the internet was the internet, he and I met at Colby College in Waterville because he was speaking, he was doing an anti-gun lecture at Colby College, and he told me that we were going to get our rear end handed to us, that the gun movement was going to be like the dodo bird. It was on its way out, that he had a brilliant new idea, and he was going to use people's lack of knowledge in firearms against us. And the way he was going to do it was he was going to petition news agencies to show footage of machine guns, fully automatic firearms, while they discussed semi-automatic firearms, and brand them as assault weapons, and that they would use this confusion in order to help pass their bills to over-regulate something that had been in existence for over 100 years already, as though it was something brand new, that Pandora's box had just opened, and we have to push it back in. And I laughed at him. I said, people aren't that stupid. It's not ever going to work. That was over 30 years ago, and here we are still having this debate. I guess I was the stupid one because I had more faith in my fellow Americans than he did. Now, he's put a lot of money behind this, and there are a lot of organizations that still push this propaganda and foolishness, and that's what creates this confusion. Assault weapons. Semi-automatic, and I can't even believe I have to explain this, but semi-automatic only means it's not an automatic. It's a firearm, any firearm, a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, where you squeeze the trigger, it fires a round, you release the trigger, and squeeze it again, and it will fire another round. For 60 years, they were called self-loading firearms. And it's not brand new magic technology, like we've been told over and over, that again, Pandora's box just creaked open, and if we don't slam it shut soon, we're not going to be able to go backwards. The first semi-automatic rifle in the United States was introduced in 1885. The first semi-automatic pistol was 1892, and the first semi-automatic shotgun was 1902. That's how long we've had self-loading firearms in the U.S. And now, largely because of Josh's effort, just the term semi-automatic gives people bad ideas about firearms. I've had people tell me that your grandfather would be ashamed if he saw you hunting with an AR-15 or a semi-automatic firearm. A real sportsman would never need one of those. And my only comment is, it's what my grandfather had. He had a Remington 742 self-loading semi-automatic, except his was way more powerful than mine. It was a 30-06. Mine was just a 223. So we've got to discuss these semantics and all of these little foolish things that typically we wouldn't think we have to discuss, but we do, and it's very important that we do, because that seed's been planted and people are lied to. Now, I can notice the lies, as can most of you, because you're familiar with the subject. You could easily tell me foolish things about tennis, or macrame, or some golf things. You could come up with ridiculous speeds that balls fly when they hit them on a serve, and I would say, sounds reasonable, I don't have any reason not to believe it, until you explain to me that physics don't work that way, and that couldn't be possible. But we'd have to have that discussion, and that's kind of what we're doing. The assault weapon du jour today seems to be the AR-15. Everybody thinks the AR-15, and that's would be pushed as the bad gun du jour. In the 1970s, it was the Uzi. Everything bad that happened. If you look at old-time magazine articles and old news clips, and it's hard to find that stuff. Before there was an internet, there wasn't a stockpile of things like we can find today. You'll find this talk today, you'll find it tonight, but it's hard to find something from the 60s and 70s, but they're there. Everything was an Uzi. Almost like every big truck, every trailer truck is a Mack truck. You know, it just kind of becomes the standard for all others. They're not Kenworths or Peterbilts, they're all Mack trucks. Well, anything bad that happens is because of an Uzi. In the 1980s, it was the Mac 10. Everything bad that happened, it was a Mac 10. In the 1990s, it was the AK-47. That was the gun that was going to cause the destruction of the United States. Today, it's the AR-15. And it's a very popular firearm. We're asked regularly, why do we see AR-15s in the news so much? And my answer is, it's the law of averages. If I were to, there are so many of them out there. It's been the most popular modern sporting rifle in the United States for almost a decade. There have been more of these things sold than any other firearm for almost 10 years straight. And everybody here knows when you go through a presidential election, those sales either spike or tank and go up and down. And we've had several contentious elections since then. There are a lot of AR-15s out there. Why are AR-15s out there? Because they're, so evil and capable, and there must be a reason. It's not. It's only because it is the perfect gun for everybody. No matter what you do with a firearm, you can do it with an AR-15. It is that modular. It's like a Lego set. It is that perfectly fixed or adjusted for the user that everyone in this room could have an AR-15 in some capacity and utilize it for whatever they want. If Robert's going squirrel hunting and he needs a little 22 long rifle plinking gun, an AR-15 is a perfect gun for that. If Andy's going on a moose hunting in November or October, and she needs a 458 SOCOM, to drop a 1.5-ton animal, AR-15 is a perfect gun for that. They're available in every single caliber, size. They are, again, because of their modularity, they're very lightweight and they can be configured very small, so a small frame person, it will fit perfectly. every one of us in here could utilize an AR-15, even though we're all different sizes and shapes. And in the winter time, that changes a lot. When you're wearing, 5 inches of clothing, because it's cold out in November or December, you have to have a shorter stock than something you're going to use in a t-shirt in the summertime. The AR-15 is perfect for that because the stock is completely adjustable on most of them. And if it isn't, you can create one that is. There are all kinds of parts for them. Like I said, it's like a Lego set. If you're plinking, if you're target shooting, if you're moose hunting, if you're squirrel hunting, if you're involved in competition, if you need something for self-defense, it's a perfect gun for that. It works for everything. That's why we see so many AR-15s, and that's why we hear it come up so often, because it fits everything. Now, I'll give you an example of why that's important to know. If you were to look at the statistics for highway accidents, and I'm just guessing at this because I haven't seen a report for a few years, you're probably going to find that the Ford F-150 is in more accidents than anything else. Way more than Lamborghinis, like by a factor of 10. A Ford F-150 half-ton pickup's more dangerous, potentially, or misused easier than a Lamborghini? No, not even close. But for every 10,000 Ford F-150 sold, there's only one Lamborghini sold. So it's just the law of averages. We're soaked in F-150s. They're not an inherently dangerous vehicle. If, by these same standards, the knee-jerk reactionary way that we're asked to do things today, if we just banned F-150s, we could stop all these car accidents. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. The Ford F-150s aren't doing anything wrong. They're not allowing people to do anything any different. They just happen to have them. And that's really important to keep in mind, too. The whole, again, assault weapon issue is based on the aesthetics of a firearm. When you ask somebody, could you please give me a definition of exactly what an assault weapon is? It reminds me of like the old 1950s hearings on pornography when they were in front of the Supreme Court or on First Amendment issues, and they were asked to, define pornography. What is pornography? What is art? And one of the answers that was repeated a lot is, I'll know it when I see it. And that's what's happened with these firearms. People see something that looks scary, and immediately that's got to go. That's a horrible, evil firearm. One that I've got for an example today is a Ruger ranch rifle. Now, this is something that doesn't fit anybody's criteria for any type of assault weapon law. It's the same thing you find over the hearth at, at your home or at a hunting camp or in the corner or on a rifle rack somewhere. It doesn't have any features that would allow it to be, super powerful or any of these buzzwords that you hear about them. And that's an important thing too, the power. We hear a lot about how powerful some of these guns are and how wrong it is that they're readily available. Power with a firearm is typically broken down into two major factors. What determines how powerful a gun is? The weight of the projectile and the speed that it's going. That's it. There really aren't a whole lot of other things that make a whole lot of difference. If you want to get into the really tight details, projectile composition, the rate of twist that they have in the rifling, those can all affect it a little bit, but nothing is even close to speed and weight, and that gives you muzzle energy. So if someone is telling you how powerful something is, and you really want to know if they're lying to you, trying to make something seem more important than it really is, or telling the truth, just ask what the projectile weighs and what the muzzle energy is, and you'll know exactly how powerful it is. A calculator can show you how powerful it is. These firearms that are typically branded as the most dangerous, as the assault weapons, the most popular caliber for them is .223, Remington. And it's often compared to a 9mm pistol round to prove or to illustrate just how powerful it is. Well, it's not an apples to apples comparison, it is an apples to zucchinis comparison, because rifle rounds always have more muzzle energy than the pistol rounds do for several factors that are only because of physics. But when you compare almost any rifle to almost any pistol, the rifle will be far more powerful. It have much more muzzle energy by quite a factor. But when you compare that 223 round to any other rifle round, it's almost at the point where it's anemic. So much so that not only is it not a crazy, overpowered, super damaging round, but in some states it's not even considered powerful enough to legally be able to hunt to shoot deer. It can't, it's not generally regarded as having the properties that would ensure a good, clean, ethical kill. That's how weak this thing really is compared to most other calibers out there. So it's crazy when we hear talk of, well, we only want to ban that one, because as soon as that one's gone, and we compare it to every other rifle round, this thing is down here somewhere in the performance chart. That 30-06 that Grandpa hunts with, that he's so proud of, or great-grandpa or great-great-grandpa, going back to 1906 now with that, is somewhere up here in power, in muzzle velocity, weight and speed. So we can't buy into that power thing. It's a pistol round compared to a rifle round, and it's just physics, and it's easy to find out. So we've got this gun, again, it's a Ruger Ranch rifle, it's a 30 caliber, ballistically similar to a 30-30 as far as performance, again, weight and speed. Not something that would be on anybody's list, it's something that we have to ban. But if you make a couple small changes to it, and we don't need any tools other than my Leatherman, and it's only because I'm still trying to get my strength back, in order to remove the trigger group, you pull out on the trigger guide. I don't have the strength to pull it out, so I'm going to use my Leatherman to do the work for me. So we'll disassemble the gun. This is the trigger group from that same firearm, and we'll remove the stock. Okay, all we've done, we've removed the stock and the trigger group. Has anything that we've done so far changed the performance of this firearm in any capacity? Is it any way more accurate, more powerful, shoot faster, have more muzzle energy, shoot a bigger projectile? It's the same gun. It's just the action of the firearm without a stock. If we put a different stock on it, and this is one that's available from Ruger, so it's not even some crazy aftermarket thing, and we snap this trigger group back in, well, now we have a gun that meets the criteria of an assault weapon. That gun's horrible. Who would want a gun like that? Who would use a gun like that? That must be too powerful for deer. You'd literally chop it in half if you shot it with that. We didn't do anything. All we did is change the aesthetics. So you've got a gun that's a little bit easier to backpack with, to throw in a travel case. You haven't done anything to it. You've got a tubular stock on the back instead of a traditional looking full wood stock. This is a gun that is on everybody's list that nobody should be able to own. But when it's in this stock, it's a gun that nobody would ever want to take away. How paranoid must I be for wanting to tell people that that's the case? With the magazines, we removed the 5-round magazine. This is the one that we use for hunting. This magazine is one that we would use at the range for target practice. Oh, it's not locking, so I didn't throw the trigger group in, but let me lock that in there so you can see it. But it is an absolute identical gun. And just by accessories changing, we've changed the definition of the gun. Not just technically, not just a little technicality, but at the point where one of them is fine to have, and everyone agrees, and the other would be a felony. And again, all that's changed is the aesthetics.
Everybody's watching, Jeff.
Yeah, I apologize for being out of practice on everything. God, I don't have a lot of strength. So this is that same gun that we held up at the beginning of the demonstration. It doesn't do anything different. It just looks different. And now it would clearly be something that the people that want to ban these things or overregulate these things or make lists of these things, it would be at the top of their list. And every single firearm has a similar story. We're looking at aesthetics, we're looking at stocks, we're looking at accessories, and somehow changing the soul or the intention of the firearm. And we can't let people do that. A firearm is only as effective as the person that is wielding it. And there are some people that I can't trust with the keys to my vehicle. and other people that I would hand the mortgage to my house to hold on to it and keep it safe. And these things are no different. So I hope that makes it a little bit easier to understand. Again, same firearm in 2 different configurations. One, it's grandpa's hunting rifle, and no one would want that. And the other one, no one should be able to have that. So that's what Dave asked me to put together for you anyway. Does anyone have any questions at all or comments?
Just a statement. Some years ago, I had a discussion with my cousin, and she grew up and lived in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And the Massachusetts border came out, and on the back is the statue of the Minuteman. And I couldn't resist. I said, "What's he got in his hand? Is that a hoe or a rake?" I said, "No, that's a rifle." I said, "In Massachusetts, is it registered?" And she said, "Well, that was only a muzzleloader." And I said, "That's probably a 75 caliber ground mist musket that was the assault weapon of the day."
That was
By the
throwing
way, that was
projectiles.
the first attempt at gun control.
Fact, that was throwing projectiles that weighed fractions of a pound, not so much grains, and they were going fast, and the injuries that were created in front of those were horrific. Yep, you're absolutely right. That was the assault weapon of the day.
So I'd like to thank the people that participated in this event. I'd like to thank Bill Green for coming and participating in moderating for us. Thank you,
Bill.
Ellie. Thank you, Jeff. I just want to say that there are a number of bills that are coming to the legislature. They haven't been scheduled for public hearing yet. When they are, you'll get notices from groups to come and testify. The only one piece of information I'd like to share with you is that education is power. An uneducated public is a public that is a risk to our freedoms. And this demonstration here is an attempt to begin the education process. The one positive thing that came out of this today is that Senator DeChambeau and others alluded to it, is education. I will be, based on what we learned today, sending out a notice to the legislature and those interested that we will put together certified and qualified instructors to give both a class here and safe handling of firearms, and we will take you next door. I want to share with you, Bureau of Veteran Services approached us last year and asked us to do that with their counselors that worked with veterans in crisis because they wanted to understand firearms. They came here, they spent half a day with instructors, they went next door, and everyone fired. And the people that came out of there were proud of the education that they had received. So that's the lesson I get out of this. Take what you've learned, use it. We will put this up on YouTube for people that want to view it, to learn, and then we will try to reach out to legislators. So thank you.
When I suggested that you do that with criminal justice, all I could think of is if you are on the Committee of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife at the beginning of the season, you get to hold a baby cow. So we'll have guns and they can have
Like Andy, I've dealt with several hundred people that are new to firearms. I do a lot of classes as well, and I've never had a single person, including those who have never even touched a gun. I've had students come to me with a firearm in a brown paper bag, holding it like excrement. I mean, they can't get it far enough away from